Have you ever attempted to communicate with someone and then you find yourself having to do it again and again and again? Well, how often should you have to repeat yourself? The answer may surprise you. Hey everyone, I'm Sonia, and on this channel I seek to help you improve your relationships and grow psychologically, particularly with regard to your attachment style. So today I just have a very short little video where I wanted to talk about the topic of when we have to repeat ourselves and why, and maybe when it doesn't make sense to do that anymore. Two reasons why we might have to repeat ourselves, where it might be worth doing that, and essential actually to getting our communication across. One is that people can't hear you when they are anxious or triggered. And so some of these relationships in our lives, maybe particularly ones that we're approaching with a particular communication that we've even planned so well and are trying to say right, like that relationship may have a dynamic already that's the reason why we need to do this. And part of that dynamic could be rooted in the other person's attachment style or something else, that's their own psychological issue. And so it very well could be that it does trigger them or make them anxious. Maybe it's because they feel like, whether they know this consciously or not, they feel like, oh, this means I did something wrong. So that could be one example. And DAs and dismissive avoidance in particular might have this reaction, but other people might too. Perhaps a parent would feel this way. For example, we're trying to communicate something to a parent and, they go immediately somewhere subconsciously into a like, oh, are they saying I'm a bad mother or father kind of thing. So those are just two quick examples, but there's lots of ways this could play out where someone else is triggered by our communication. And that's not our intention at all. And maybe we're even saying it very carefully, but they go into a state where they really can't hear us because that's the crux of why, is because they really cannot process auditorially what we're saying and take it in and understand it when, they're in an anxiety state in their body, or their mind started running in different directions, or they're starting to think about how they want to respond to us already. So it's frustrating. It can be frustrating, but it's a very understandable human reaction as well. And so just know that you may have to repeat it because they really didn't hear it the first time around because of this reason. And the second reason is simply when we are changing any dynamic, even just in a slight extent. Let's say we're just setting a very small boundary, or we're, letting a partner know a particular need that we have and how they could help us with it. So however big or small that is a shift in the dynamic. And, as humans, we tend to go for the status quo and like feeling comfortable and safe with the way things already are, right? That's like a lot of the reason that it's so difficult to get out of psychological patterning. So because of this difficulty with changing the patterns and dynamics in our relationships that they'll likely have if you're trying to make even a small change, it's another reason why you may have to broach the topic multiple times. So again, this could be in any kind of communication, but perhaps setting a boundary is a classic example of where you might need to set that over and over again before the change really happens fully. So, okay, so we have these two instances where it's worth it to keep trying. It's just understandable, part of human nature, as to why it hasn't been taken in fully or isn't effective yet with the person we're communicating with. But when is it a good time to stop? Because it's also true that sometimes we're repeating ourselves and it's never going to go anywhere. Or the person's perceiving it as nagging, for example. So one potential thing to think about is how you're communicating it. So always make sure you're communicating it in a way that you think the person could receive well. So practicing it perhaps ahead of time with someone else, but really thinking out your script so you're not blaming, so you're really communicating with I statements, that kind of thing. It is worth taking a look at that. For example, if someone seems to be perceiving it as nagging. And maybe you could even say that, like, I'm not trying to nag you here. I really need you to hear what I'm saying, that kind of thing. This is important to me, that kind of thing, to start it. But let's assume that you aren't in that situation, you feel like you are communicating it well. Then when it would be the time to stop would be when the other person really isn't interested in what you have to say. So you don't have to take this personally. It just could be that they are not on a point in their own psychological journey where this particular communication is something that they can deal with and that they can take into account and that they're willing to change. And so if that's true, then that would be the time to stop. And then at that point, you can make other decisions about the level of relationship that you want with the person, or is there another way to get the need met? Depends on what the situation is. But that would be the time to stop, is if the other person actually really isn't interested in what you're saying, in making any changes, that kind of thing. So hopefully this was helpful. Just a quick video on this particular issue that we can often have of communicating and then having to repeat ourselves over and over. I'd love to hear in the comments of any of your particular experiences with this. On this channel, I really like to see how it's playing out in everyone's lives so that we can all understand the nuances and better how to go about our psychological and relationship growth. And I would appreciate a like, a subscribe, a share if you found this content helpful, just trying to get it out there to as many people who might find it useful as possible.